Right, today I'm going to talk about riveting. Riveting is a way to attach two pieces of sheet metal together. So for instance, this piece is connected with these two pieces of copper wire that are then hammered down into nail heads. So you can see them on the back there. This is a way if you want to combine two different textures. If you want to combine two different types of metal, so here we have nickel silver and we have brass combined with some nickel silver rivets. Or if you want to create depth, so by having two different sheets of metal, you automatically get this overlap in a design which can make it a little more complex or interesting to look at. You can also use them to trap objects in between. So for instance, the piece that I'm going to show you today is this piece, and I'm going to attach this on the surface. And the top piece has this interesting cutout space, which I could then take something like an important photograph, a very flat object that I might have, or something like a drawing, which I just did a quick doodle to show you. And I can place that between my sheets of metal, and it makes a frame for it there. I also have what you're seeing in the background here. This is plexiglass. It's covered in blue paper just to keep it safe. And then I also have thinner plexi, so you can actually make like a nice window out of it and cover it up and keep it safe. For my design, I'm just going to stick with metal. So this is what I'm working on creating now. And I'll show you my sketch. This is a really important part of planning out your design. You can see that I've got the brass piece drawn here, which will be my bottom, and then I've got my top piece, which is copper, and I show 3 rivets on there. I decided that I want the rivets to be made of brass, and I also went and checked what kind of wire we have, because an important part of riveting is making sure your drill bit and the wire are the same exact size. It will not work if you do not follow that step. I also have a nice little checklist here that keeps me in order with all the steps I need. This is really critical because with riveting, if you do things out of order, sometimes it completely ruins the design. So just having a plan beforehand can really help. All right, so I created my 2 pieces and I cut them out. And I also used Sharpie just to draw on this one where the exterior shape will be. Now I already went ahead and drilled my holes in this top piece of metal. So I drilled all 3 of them using the same drill bit. And then in the bottom one, I drilled only 1 hole. So to figure out where it went, I put my top piece on, and then I made a very small mark with a Sharpie through that hole, and that told me where I should drill my last hole. All right, so we have to make sure the wire is the same size as the hole, or this will not work. So I grabbed some brass wire. You want to use thicker wire than this, like 18 gauge, 20 gauge, 16 gauge would all work. None of the thin wires will really hold. So this wire is 16 gauge, and if I want to double check on my gauge plate, I can measure. Okay, this is 16 gauge. Oh, I'm sorry, this is 14 gauge. 14 gauge wire. Now I need to find a drill bit that matches that 14. So if I look, this would be an equivalent drill bit. I also wrote down on my paper that information, so 14 gauge wire, number 52 drill bit, just so I have it in case I have to come back another day and finish up what I'm doing. All right, so now I have the wire and the drill bit that I need. I already drilled my 3 holes in the top piece. You always drill all of them in the top piece and only 1 in the bottom piece. Now I need to cut this wire. This is a little bit thick to use snips, and when you cut with snips, it actually makes a little bit of a V or like a sharp point. We actually don't really want that for this, so I recommend using your saw and carefully cutting a piece of wire. It's not an easy thing to do, but what you do is you hold it very steadily. Usually I put it right against the edge of the table here, and I saw right along the side here. It takes a little bit of practice to do nicely, but once you get through, then you have less cleanup work to do after. Okay. So now right here on the table, I have 3 pieces of wire that I already sawed out. Okay, one is pretty thin, pretty small, one's kind of in between, and one is a little bit bigger. I know they are very small to see, but these are going to be my rivets. Now I made them all different sizes just to show you, because it's tough to know exactly how long you want your piece to be. So I'm going to draw a little picture. This is the side view of my pieces of metal. So here is my bottom sheet of metal. Here is my smaller top piece of metal. And they're about the same thickness or gauge. Now the rivet, when I put it through, I want it to stick up on each end about the thickness of one of my gauges of metal. So when it looks through, it should look like that. If it sticks up like this, when I hit it with the hammer, what will happen is this will just bend over. Okay, so I only want it to stick up about as thick as the metal on either side. All right, so I cut a couple different ones. Now I'm gonna try and place it on here and see how it looks. Sometimes to get it through, it's nice to take your set of pliers to hold it while you place it through. And sometimes it takes a little wiggling to get the piece through the first time. Oh, I forgot about a very key piece. If you notice, these look pretty shiny. I've already done my polishing and my sanding. It makes a lot of sense to do this ahead of time because once they're attached together, you can't really get underneath. All right, I'm gonna